Hello and welcome to Video Revealed. I'm Colin Smith, and this is a place to go for professional video production techniques. The reveal this time is Photoshop to Premiere Pro workflows. Photoshop can create great layered images. Well, Premiere Pro can work with all of those layers, and Premiere Pro can also import gigantic files. You don't have to make your files smaller. There's one gotcha there. Make sure you have enough RAM, because if you don't have enough RAM, I mean, those images have to be somewhere. So you got 10,000 pixel images and you've got 400 of them and you're using an old laptop, that's going to be a problem. But for most of us, you're taking shots. I'm shooting on my Canon 5D Mark III. Those are pretty big files and they can go anywhere, and we can animate them inside Premiere Pro. Let's have a look at some important steps. This is an image shot with my Canon 5D Mark III. You can see the file size, or the pixel size, inside Photoshop is 5,760 pixels wide and 3,840 pixels tall. I can use it exactly as that is, or I could crop it inside here. I've also created another Photoshop file, and I've added a bunch of layers inside here. And you can see I've got some type, I've got a vector leaf, I've got a banner, and the image itself, and the white background. I left the white background in there just as a gotcha because I don't see it, but it's going to cause, well, it's not so much it's going to cause problems in Premiere Pro, it's just always going to be something that you'll have to turn off. So it's better to delete it right here. Now you can start by creating a new file. So I can go to File, New, and inside here, you may not know, but there's some default settings. It's usually set on paper, but Photoshop actually has a film and video setting inside here with a bunch of different sizes. The thing that I would worry about here is non-square pixels. Non-square pixels isn't something that normally that someone in Photoshop deals with, but it can cause a problem when you're animating this in video format out for the web or for broadcast that isn't square pixel. I'm going to forget any of this and just choose 1920, 1080, 72. Click OK, and now we have that. I'll go back to my full-size image, and I'm going to grab this right here. So I'm just clicking in the middle with the move tool, dragging up to my new document, holding shift down and let go, and now it's inside this page. And if I wanted to, I could do my regular cropping and scaling inside here in Photoshop. So that's no different. I'm just going to close that. I don't really need that. I'm really going to work with these two images inside here, the layered Photoshop file and the gigantic Canon 5D Mark III file. So let's jump into Premiere Pro and go over, remember, not to the file menu. We want to go to the media browser, because we get a preview in here and we get lots of intelligence inside here. So let me start by bringing in this layered Photoshop file. And over on the right hand side, it says drop media here to create a sequence. Because this is a 1920, 1080, this is an HD file, it's going to create a sequence that size. You could also create your own sequence, but I'm just going to drag this inside, and I'll get presented with a dialog box with some important choices in here. The two things that are really important about this dialog box is whether you want to merge all the layers, flatten them, or have individual layers. You're going to merge the layers when you don't care about working with them. You don't want to housekeep all that stuff. You want this to behave as if it was a flat image, and that's appropriate. You can choose to merge all, or you can pick the layers you want to merge. But we're going to deal with either individual layers or a sequence. Now, I want to show you the difference here. We're going to do individual layers first, and we can either make this a document size or the layer size. Let's say that I did want to animate all of these elements together. So I'm going to bring in individual layers, and I want them to be based on their layer size. Click OK. Now when we go over to our project bin, this is where all of our files are sitting, and we can see each one of them there. If we want to, we could view these as a bunch of thumbnails if we want, which is good, but I'm going to go back to viewing these just as a list file. And we don't have a sequence over here, so if we double click on each one of these, we'll be opening them inside our source monitor. And you can see that big white thing is the white background. So that's one of the reasons why I would delete that in the Photoshop file, so I'm not accidentally bringing that in each time. Back over here in our project bin, without that background, you can see I'm double clicking on each one of those layers individually because they came in individually. So this happens to be a 1080 by a 1920 1080, so I can actually create this as a sequence over here. And now I'm going to start dragging in each one of my objects. So this was the rectangle which came up next, and and you see the biggest problem here is that each one of these files, and let me make sure that I'm bringing in well, you can see the problem. We've brought in each individual layer and we saved the transparency values of all of those layers, but they're in the wrong place. I can freely move these around, so if I come over here and double click, I can go back and put this all in the same place. So if I wanted to, I could reconstruct that same look. So I'm double clicking inside here to select them, and then I want to put my type over top of that one. So now this looks more like the original Photoshop file. But let's look at an easier way to do that. Let me get rid of all of this, go back to my media browser, and instead we'll import this as a sequence and use the document size. Now when I click OK, and if I go to my project bin, open that up, there's a sequence waiting for me. Double clicking on that, all of the layers and all the transparency and all the layer effects are all completely intact. But if I double click on one of these layers, you can see that I'm moving the document size. So it understands the position because it understands the document size. It doesn't really change the look, the design, or the animation, or the manipulation. It just gives you a larger area to select. It's up to you whether you want to do the small areas and rebuild that or not. Let's also look at bringing in that other file. So this was the very large Canon 5D Mark III file, and I'll just drag this into my sequence. And you can see over here, when I double click on this sequence, or sorry, double click on the image inside the program monitor, I have the full size of this image. In fact, if we go to our effects controls and twirl down motion and drag scale up, look at how clear this still looks because it's a giant 60-some megabyte file that I'm working with. It's amazing what you can have inside here. In fact, I could probably take this up even more and it's still going to be a good quality. Right now we're set to look at this as fit. If I go out to 10%, well, you'll see how big that image is outside there. It's absolutely ginormous. So let me make it a bit smaller so you can see the outside handles on there. That's how big that file is that we're moving around inside here. So whether you're dealing with just a collection of layers that you're bringing in, or flattened layers, or giant files, and you're panning and zooming around inside here, it's really important to understand that Photoshop, as powerful as it is, can keep all of those powers and layer styles inside Premiere Pro. You don't have to flatten or rasterize or compromise at all. It also accepts large images. So hopefully you found this informative. If you did, then click on the subscribe button to Video Revealed. If you're not already an Adobe Creative Cloud user, then hop on over to adobe.com and download your free 30-day trial. Till next time, I'm Colin Smith, and it's my job to get you looking your best.